cool. All right, here we go. I'm gonna give everybody a chance to load up in here. Make my post real quick, you know how I do. All right. Let's go give some people a chance to get up in here before we get on to today's stream, man. We're gonna be in here all day, but we are gonna get some good stuff in. Excuse me. Get some stuff right on my end. All right. All right, cool. I got my post in real quick. Let me post one more thing real quick, and I'm gonna just get right into it here in a moment. Hey, Ganny, how you doing? About to get into the live right here. I'm just giving it a moment to let people gather in if they're gonna join up today, and then we're gonna get right into it. We got a lot of good topics today. A lot of, just staying grounded in a market that sometimes challenges our emotions and our discipline and our character and who we are. You know, that's how the enemy works. All right, cool. I got some posts up. All right. I'll give everybody a moment to join up. Shout out to everybody that is pulling up to me. I was coming over a little under the weather over these past couple days, but feeling a lot better. Hey, Ma. Man, we're going to get right into it pretty soon. The good thing about these lives and why I don't really be too much tripping about the viewers in the moment is because it lives on afterwards. So once we wrap up the live, we go back into, the video just being posted into YouTube. That's why I chose YouTube as a platform, because once it's posted, it's up. You don't have to only be a part of the live to see what's going on. So I won't take today shouldn't be too long of a stream. We got a good agenda planned out for us today, though, as we're gonna get into some talks about, the markets being down. A lot of people think it might be a bear market. A lot of people might think it's a bull market. A lot of my people just think it's this uncertainty. So just trying to get into all of those realms of exactly what is going on in the world around us, because that's all that really matters when it comes to these markets. Sorry, I was just posting something else to a message chat, but that's all that matters is what's going on around us. What's the political noise? What's really going on, so that we know, is this a real crash, or is there a narrative, or is this manipulation? Okay, and that's the kind of questions we're gonna ask today. No matter what it is, we still gonna invest. We still gonna buy. These are the days that we want to see. We want to see the markets down. We want to see, a pullback, because it's good to get in and it's good to find, better prices. Just like anything else. If a TV on sale, I'm gonna be excited, especially if I need a TV. Then I'm gonna go buy that TV while it's on sale. So, you know, we just have a high conviction that like, yeah, I know this TV gonna work. And then I know like me buying this TV means that I'm gonna be able to watch TV, right? So we gotta have that same conviction over the assets we invest in. If you don't have a sort of conviction over an asset, once it's down, you're just gonna get your money out, losing money already, right? But if you know what you're investing into, it's like, okay, I know what this is, I know where it's going. I can't let the short term noise pull me out of my position and trick me, right? So, with all that being said, with all that being put into perspective into our minds, we're gonna just go right on ahead and get into this. And people could come in people could join up as they come in, and then they can stick around. Or if you're watching this after the stream itself, welcome to today's live, where we're going to be talking about the current market structure and what exactly is going on in this world that is causing this to happen. Because as you see here, we're down. And we were looking at these charts last week. So if you've watched last week's video or you were a part of last week's live, we said we are waiting to see how this week candles perform, right? This is the weekly candle. So on the weekly candle, hang on real fast. On the weekly candle, every candle represents 7 days. So last week's candle was right here at this EMA, testing to see what it was going to do. So now you see this next week, we actually broke below this 100 EMA. So now you could say this is technically a bearish signal. But in order for it to truly come to pass as markets is coming down, first we got 53 minutes left on this weekly candle. That's why we're going live today at 3 instead of 4. We want to see, when it comes to the charts, you want to see how does the candle actually close. So it doesn't matter right now because this could still go up and turn into a wick. How does the candle actually close? And then we're going to want to see this next week candle as a retest candle. Okay, so now that we've seen, and we could just go on a limb and say that we think it's going to close under this EMA. And if it were to do so, we would be like this next week coming up. So right here, the first week of February is a retest. We're going to see it's going to end up running somewhere next week back to this 80K, back to where this 100 EMA is. So right around this range that you see, that 84, 85. Bitcoin will go back to 84 to 85,000 on a retest. Doesn't mean it's going to stay there. Doesn't mean it's going to break above. Doesn't mean it's going to get smacked back down. But it's going to retest, and we're going to see what it does there. That's why right now at 76,000, this is the perfect time to buy. It hasn't been at 76,000 since April 2025, almost a year ago. Okay, so you're buying it at a discounted rate. So that's how we look at that. And now, with all that in mind, and all of that, okay, cool, this is a discounted rate. What is going on? It's a lot of fear mongering going on the internet. A lot of influencers are pushing you to sell by saying, markets are down, dump this, or they're pushing their own narratives, maybe about government shutdown or what our president has in store, or these recent files that were released. They're pushing a lot of different narratives, all designed to shake you out of your position. That's what the markets does. And you see right now, 52 minutes left, we're starting to get back into this structure we had. So let's see how this last 54 minutes go. So we won't look too long at the charts because I plan on coming back here in about 50 minutes after we get into the juice of our conversation, right? So before we even get into that real quick, we just want to look at coin market cap real fast and check out this. As you see, the market cap is down. This is the crypto market. Oh, hold on. Oops, sorry about that. This is the crypto market cap as a whole right here. We're down to 2.59. Why would we be down to 2.59, you might think? Well, because look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is now at $1.5 trillion, and that makes up more than half. So if Bitcoin's down, the market's going to be down as well. People selling their Bitcoin, people will sell their other positions in the crypto market as well. That's just kind of how the market works as of right now, okay? This isn't a bad thing. Let's look right here. Fear and greed index. We're at extreme fear. There's extreme fear. Okay, and remember, we have to start looking at the markets as the smart money, as the institutions, as the people that control this. Because the way that they look at this is they see extreme fear. They see market cap is down. Market cap was just at 3.6 trillion when everybody was happy. You know what I mean? We were just up here at 3.2, 3.2, 3.2, and now we're coming down. See 3.1 selling off. Now it's at 2.6, and now everyone's scared. But this is when, the people that understand the game shake their hands just like this, and it's time to buy. It's time to eat. It's time to get in position, okay? While they scare us, retailers out of the market, okay? Everything that happens, everything that's going on is calculated moves, calculated risk in order to buy at a better price, okay? So let's go ahead and pull that back up real fast. So just make sure everyone's following me, whether you're viewing this live, whether you're viewing this live or you're watching this after fact. Just want to make sure y'all still with me. Markets are down right now, and you see fear and greed index for crypto is at 18 in extreme fear. Extreme fear means it's time to buy. Do not fall into the trap. Retailers are in the trap of extreme fear means I need to sell my shares, I need to sell my assets, okay? And that's not where we are right now. Extreme fear means everything is on sale. So if you have any extra cash in around, you should probably get into some positions that you like, because once this bar is back to greed or neutral, these prices will be up. And it's not a matter of if that happens, because it's gonna happen. It's a matter of when it happens. Where am I at position wise, right? Where am I at position wise? So there are multiple things that are playing a factor into why the markets are down. Crypto and the stock market, even gold and silver commodities are down. This also includes the ETFs? No. So we're looking at crypto right now. So actually, let's go ahead and pull that up right fast. Let's look at the ETFs. Okay, so ETF is stock market. So since all the stocks are down, okay, so right now it says that the fear index for the stock market is in greed, okay? So the way that the crypto market doesn't necessarily affect your ETF, because crypto is different than stocks, right? Stocks have been down, okay? And when we open up on Monday, we could probably see this greed turn to fear as well, and people start selling. Why? Because gold is down, because silver is down, because the crypto market is down over the weekend. That greed that we just seen on CNN fear and index was coming from Friday's close, so it hasn't adopted yet to what's been going on over the weekend, okay? What makes your ETFs go down is stocks, because the ETF is basically just a basket of the best stocks that you have in that sector. So if you have an energy ETF, you have the best energy stocks. So if the energy sector is down, your ETF would be down as well. If you have SPY, the S&P 500 is down, then your ETF is down as well, okay? If you have the best tech stocks, if the tech sector is down, your tech ETF is down as well, okay? So if you were to have an ETF for crypto, let's say you had IBIT. IBIT is the Bitcoin ETF. If you had IBIT, then Bitcoin is down, so your IBIT ETF would be down as well. So us looking at crypto doesn't necessarily mean your ETF is down based on the ETF you have, okay? But as we already put our context clues into work, Friday we were already heading down in a downtrend on the markets. We had the earnings reports coming in from the Mag 7. So, Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Meta all had their earnings. A couple of them beat, a couple of them didn't meet expectations, Microsoft as well. And it kind of made a little sell-off. People started selling. So what happens then is that everything else gets sold as well, kind of like the crypto market. When Bitcoin goes down, the rest of the market goes down as well, because if people are transitioning their money out of Bitcoin, not only are they transitioning their money out of crypto, but they're doing it out of the altcoins as well. As you see, XRP sitting here at 156. We got BNB down. We got Solana under $100. I don't remember the last time I've ever seen Solana under 100. If ETH is almost at 1K, okay? Oh, wait, got it. Thanks. I'm glad I was able to explain that. So, yeah, we'll see how the markets open up on Monday, tomorrow, to know what the fear and greed index is for the stock market. But crypto's open right now. And since I would just go on a hunch and say everyone's having a mass sell-off for crypto, I could imagine that Monday morning could consist of the same thing. We don't guess, we don't assume, we look at charts and we do the work. So once after hours start, I'll start doing my diagnostics there, and I'll look at ES overnight and see what that does, because that's what the smart money is. If you trade SPY, if anybody's here from Same Game, from Coach, okay, if you trade SPY, we'll take a look at ES tonight, and we'll get an idea of what SPY could potentially do tomorrow. Okay, so let's get right into the juice of this conversation today. And why is the markets down? So there's plenty of reasons, okay? And we're going to first start with the government shutdown, okay? So as you know, the government was just recently shut down. And I'm gonna click back over to this page when we go to it because I don't like how bright the white light is. But the government was just recently shut down, and a lot of people may hear shutdown and we get confused on what a shutdown really is. Okay, so 2020 pandemic, we were shut down. That was different. The government shut down. We were shut down. Everyone was shut down. So every citizen couldn't do certain things. Remember, they initiated curfews, they initiated different things that was going on. That was a completely different shutdown because of a pandemic, because of a global crisis, because of the sickness, okay? This government shutdown means that the government cannot come to agreements. And if you remember, we went to a government shutdown in November, and that's where this bill was first put into play. Continuing Appropriations, Agriculture, Legislative Branch, Military Constructions, and Veteran Affairs and Extensions Act 2026, okay? So this was put into play November 12th, 2025. And basically what this is, the government cannot come to an agreement on what they were going to be paying federal workers. The federal workers are the people that are listed right here. So military constructions, veterans affairs, legislative branch, agriculture, and appropriations. So since they couldn't come to an agreement, this right here is basically an act that says, hey, we can't come to an agreement, so we're going to add an extension to the previous agreement we had to get us through this fiscal year that expires January 30th. So if we do not come to an agreement by then, we're going to have to go back into another shutdown. Hint what just happened the past couple days, yesterday. So at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time, I guess on my approach, or Eastern time, 12:01 a.m. Eastern time, January 31st, there was no agreement made. So we went back into our government shutdown, okay? And basically, now the real question is this. It's not about whether are we gonna see the government open back up. The real question is this. Are we going to put another Band-Aid over the agreement, or are we going to come to some long-term stability that could create stability in the markets and not have the markets so volatile, right? Because basically right here, this act, and we're not going to read this whole act because as you see, this act goes on for days, okay? It goes on for days, but I have read this and I know what it is saying. Basically, to sum this up, this act is a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid for a bigger situation. So instead of them coming to an agreement, they're basically kicking the can down the road like, hey, we don't have to talk about this now, but for market stability and to end our fiscal year right and to head into a new year, this was back in November, to head into a new year, let's just draw up this extension act to make it, seem good, to make it seem like we got it figured out, to create security for the markets, to get retailers on board, to make it look like we are on top of our stuff, right? That's all that was. So when this happened, like, hey, let's put this Band-Aid that we're looking at right now back over the shutdown, we as investors was like, okay, everything is good as new. Everything is perfect. This is good. Like, government's reopened. TSA members have their job. Like somebody might be like, hey, my uncle worked TSA. Now he got his job back. My uncle's in the military. Now he got his job back. Yada, yada, yada. But what you don't see and what you won't know unless you read these actual acts is that this was just temporarily fixed. This was not a true solution, okay? So what would the true solution be? What would be an actual solution in order to make this happen? So we would need to see a full year being signed here. So if the government comes to an agreement and it says for the next year, that creates market stability, okay? What they did in the past in November was called a continuing resolution, okay? So this means we will come back to this topic and we will continue to find a resolution to this fix, okay? Y'all following me right now? I see I got a couple viewers. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, comment. If you got any questions, if I'm going too fast, let me know, slow down, talk to me, okay? So what they signed in November was a continuing resolution, also known as a CR, okay? A CR basically says we will continue to find a resolution down the road, but this Extensions Act, as you see right here, this Extensions Act has an expiration date on it, and that expiration date is January 30th. And if we cannot come to an agreement on what we're going to pay people, then we're going back into a government shutdown. So now, is this bullish news? Is it bearish news? Listen to the words. Government shutdown. Government shutdown. That's bearish news. Even if you don't know what's going on, even if you've never read an act like this, even if you've never visited congress.gov to come and find a bill, an act, anything, if you hear those two words, government shutdown, you like, yo, what the heck is going on? Is this a pandemic? Is this something crazy? I don't know what's going on, but how does this affect me? Okay, and that's most of the people in the world, honestly, because we're not gonna. Who's gonna read these pages? You know, the government knows what they're doing. They make them this long for a reason. Because who truly wants to sit here and read this? I don't. The only reason why I do is because I invest. So I need to know what's going on. You know what I mean? But if you don't even invest, and or you're not a government worker, and this doesn't affect you, you're not gonna read this. It's simple as that. The common American will not read this, which is okay. You know what I mean? But if you want to actually be knowledgeable in these situations, you have to read these sorts of things. Okay, so just to wrap up the government shutdown, okay, what we need to see from the government is, are we going to have another CR, the continuing resolution, also known as a band-aid, a short-term fix, not a true resolution? Or will we see the real fix, a full year being coming, an agreement that regards the full year? So will they come to new prices to pay federal workers for another year, or will they piggyback off of the old agreement they had for another CR? That's what we're looking for here. That's what the government shutdown is about. You know, Congress can't come to agreement. You know, we live in a two-party system world. You know what I mean? And we just can't come to that agreement. So until then, until either one happens, the markets may be in the pullback. People may be selling because people do not want to invest in a time of uncertainty. Why? I don't know. Because it's uncertainty. Like, who would want to? You know what I mean? Me, I just want to see the markets go up because I invest, of course. But when there is uncertainty and I look at a fear and greed index like this and we're in extreme fear, I'm not getting nervous. I'm going to go look at facts and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to just try to invest more because this is a time to do so. Because the day that they come to a solution, whether it's the CR, which would just be another short-term fix, or they come to a full year, then the markets will go back up, okay? So that's how we look at this. That's how we view this. And, you know, the Anti-Deficiency Act that needs to be signed in order to make this work, let's talk about why they come to these short-term agreements, okay? These short-term agreements, you know, it manipulates the market and it creates political leverage, as simple as that. Because if they signed another one, right? Let's say they signed another CR, and then now there's an expiration date on when we go back into another government shutdown, right? They won't tell us that, though. They won't tell us there's an expiration date on when we shut down again. They're going to say a solution was found. And then in another 30 to 45 days, we'll be right back to square one. And guess what happens? Oh, yay, the government's reopened. Let me go buy some more stocks and some more gold and some more crypto. Okay, cool. And then 30 days comes from now, and now we're right back to square one. Let me pull prices back down. Everyone's going to sell again once this unexpected, you know, government shutdown comes back around. But from the whole time, from the jump, it was always going to come back around. Politicians knew it. The rich knew it. The wealthy knew it. The institutions knew it. The banks knew it. It was always going to come back around, okay? So it's important to do research. Anytime you invest, we got to start looking at it from the ownership point of view. We have to really know what's going on in the world as well, okay? So that's a stemming factor to why the markets are down. So part two, let's go ahead and talk about another one. And we'll just touch on this real briefly, okay? So Kevin Warsh. He was a former member of the Federal Reserve, I believe from 2006 to 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, from right here. Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Yep, 2006 to 2011. Okay, he served as a Federal Board of Governors member. Now he is he is being appointed by President Trump to take over the reins from Federal Powell. Okay, and this has a lot of different implications. Okay, first and foremost, the number one implication is, what will he do regarding to interest rate cuts and, you know, pushing it back up? And now they're like, well, if this is Trump's guy, this is how, when I say they, I'm talking about investors. So even you, me, institutions, banks, smart money. When we see something like this, we're like, first thing first, Trump appointed this guy, so this is just going to be Trump pulling strings. If Trump wants interest rates cut, then he's going to cut them. Yeah, right? That's how we look at it. That's how people think. So when you look at it from that sentiment, this could be either bullish or bearish news, whichever you would like to make it, right? Two, this is actually, and this could be bullish based on how you perceive it, this is actually the first ever pro-crypto Federal Reserve chairman ever in our history, okay? Federal Powell has been the governor, well, I say the head seat of the Federal Reserve since Obama's era. He's been in there like the last 8 to 10 years, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so now we're getting replaced, and the reason why we're getting replaced is because Trump couldn't control him. You know, Trump couldn't control him. Trump's like, hey, I need the feds to cut rates this month, and they like, actually, unemployment rate has a change. He's like, I'm not trying to hear that. You listen to me, but Powell's been under plenty of administrations. He was there when Trump got elected the first time. So he's like, I'm not worried about nothing you talking about, okay? So now it comes back to the fact of like, when you look at it from that point of view, it's like Trump's trying to control, Trump's trying to manipulate, Trump's being Trump, right? But when you look at it from, an investor point of view, as someone that invests into crypto, somebody that invests into the markets, this could be, bullish or bearish news for you, however you were to perceive it. You know what I mean? So, this is something to look out for. Technically, Federal Powell has 2 more terms as the chairman of the board, so he'll be able to decide on interest rate cuts twice more, so 2 more meetings before his term is done, and apparently Kevin Warsh could fulfill that role. And like I said, depending on what kind of investor you are, this could be bullish news to you, this could be bearish news to you. It's just whatever light you take that in, right? So this is another piece of the market that kind of triggered everything. One random night at about 2 a.m. Pacific time, Trump announced that, hey, I'm nominating Kevin Warsh as the next potential chairman. And a lot of people, 1, don't like it because this is Trump's guy. 2, a lot of people do like it because, he's pro-crypto, he's pro-Bitcoin. And that's the way that the world's going to be moving here soon anyways. We're going blockchain, we're going digital assets. That's regardless. So now it's kind of like seeing him take the chair is making it align federally that we could be seeing some rails implemented here soon, okay? All right. And then another thing that could be driving crypto down, and we're going to touch on this briefly because I don't want to spend too much conversation points here because, one, this guy was oddball, okay? But the new Epstein files have been released, okay? And a lot of people are saying different things about it. So before we even get into here, let's pull up this right here, okay? This is something that's been floating around social media. This is one of the files from the Epstein case, okay? And I've done a lot of research into the Epstein files based on crypto and how it relates to the future of our digital finance, okay? And that's all I've been looking at. We know what type of man he was. We know about all that. All I could do is pray for the brother, pray for other people in the world, and leave that up to God. I cannot judge a man, okay? So we're looking at this from the crypto point of view, and this has been floating around the digital asset influencer space, okay? So a lot of people that make content on crypto and investing and stocks and things of that sort of nature have been floating this email around, okay? And it's just been fear mongering, okay? Because you see here, hi guys, we obviously have seen Stellar.org. For those who don't know, Stellar is a network that produces the token XLM. They're big on the blockchains and for tokenization of real world assets. They're playing a big pillar right now. I actually am in love with Stellar. I'm bullish on Stellar, and alongside with Ripple that he also mentioned here. I'm not sure what the relationship with Jet and the team are. I know obviously some of the players, but this is a problem for us. Would one of you please give me a call at blah, blah, blah. I can explain some of the issues, but basically I've been asked by the co-founders to reduce or take your allocation away. Ripple and Jet's new Stellar are bad for the ecosystem. We are building, and it does our company damage to have investors who are backing 2 horses in the same race. Happy to discuss a fair way to deal with this. Best, Austin, okay? So this was an email coming to J.E. We're not even going to say his name. It was coming to J.E. from Austin. Some guy named Austin Hill, okay, back in 2014. And a lot of people see this and they're like, oh my gosh, J.E. created Bitcoin. He's the founder. He's Satoshi, yada, 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 yada. This is nothing but fear-mongering. So, me, as I see the fear-mongering, I'm scrolling down and I just see content after content after content of people trying to force you to sell your shares and get out of your generational position that could to potentially change your life. There's people out here just spreading false truths, half of the story, and not showing us the full picture. So I decided I'm going to do my own research. So I dove deep into these files based on crypto, Satoshi, Bitcoin, and, blockchains and things of that nature. And I've come to the thesis that I don't know what this is. Do not show. I've come to the thesis that JE was one of the first people, rich people, to come across Bitcoin and the blockchain as a whole. Okay, so this was actually in 2013. As we know, Bitcoin was created in 2008. 2009, it started growing legs. JE didn't receive a first email about Bitcoin and crypto until 2011, according to these files, okay, until 2011. So that right there already shows me that he was not the guy that created Bitcoin, you know. So this right here was the business that was alluded to in the previous email we just read, okay. This was about Dice, Satoshi Dice, and throughout all of these threads of the files, he was just getting information on different things in this realm. For this is Dice, you could gamble Bitcoin numbers, yada yada yada. Someone sold that for Bitcoins for 126,000 Bitcoin, equivalent to $11.4 million back in that time of 2014. Okay, this is 126,000 Bitcoin now is close to a couple $billion. Okay, because Bitcoin's in that 70K right now, so you can kind of see the gap in that investment already. But even the theme of his of these emails, you know, even here, I just emailed someone I know who might have a faster track to this kind of biz plan they're interested on. Okay, this was a startup again. He was being introduced to different scenarios of Bitcoin right here. This was another one. This was when he was first introduced into Bitcoin. Okay, Bitcoin and the interstate controlled money. Okay, so now let's talk about the threat that it opposed to their company, okay, to what they were trying to get into. So this email right here. And as you see, reduce your allocations, Ripple and are bad for the ecosystem we are trying to build right here. What exactly were they talking about in this email that was bad for the ecosystem? Ripple and XLM were more on the centralized society of blockchains. Are you following me? So what do you mean by centralized? At this time in the early days and stages of crypto, everyone that was invested into the markets, anyone that's seen the vision, seen this as an answer to a bad financial system, which it is, which is not wrong, which is correct. But they only seen it as decentralized version. Bitcoin was the main thing around, so everyone thought the answer was Bitcoin. We just turned to Bitcoin for money. Bitcoin is going to be the new dollar. Bitcoin's the greatest thing to exist. Yada yada yada. You know, narrow-sighted. We haven't got to where we are today, and what we know now, right? So the ecosystem that they were trying to build was only decentralized money, meaning no one can track it, no one can see it, and a lot of early crypto heads that are still around today carry this mindset. That's why a lot of people don't like XRP or don't like, you know, Stellar, or don't like these new coins that are working with the banks to make it happen, right? They were like, this is the answer to the banks. This is how we strip the banks of their power entirely so that we don't rely on the banks no more, so that we disintegrate the banks. Even when we look at this email, look at the title of the email. The end of state controlled money, okay? The end of state controlled money. And that is where it was happening. They were trying to get rid of how money was moving. So when he says this creates a bad environment for our ecosystem, they're saying that this does not serve the benefits of decentralized finance. This actually serves the benefits of banks having a solution to integrate into this space. Okay, and they didn't like that vision. Now, as we're sitting here, we're praying and hoping that there's an agreement with these acts and these bills for the banks to get on board. Okay, but you see, early 2012, 2013, 2014, they didn't want the banks to know. The banks didn't even know what Bitcoin was at this time. They knew, but they were like, it's a scam, yada, yada, yada. We're never going to switch to that. Never, ever, 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 ever. And that's where the rich people came out the woodworks. And JE, one of the rich people out the woodworks, you know, came through and seen it and was like, this is something that I'll invest in, you know, even as I did my research. From 2010, this is 2013, okay, from 2010 till 2015, okay, this is another one, this is 2013 as well right here. But from 2010 to 2015, he was receiving updates, weekly updates. And as you see, like this one talks about President Obama. Obama was in office and stuff like that. And it was always introducing Bitcoin. So even as I was going through these files right here, this is an email of him asking his attorneys. This was him seeking attorney advertising 2015, okay, to figure out whether this was a good investment or not, trying to get some information on the CFTC, okay? So, you know, he was being educated on this space. in the early 2010s. That's all that was happening. So a lot of these emails is him trying to learn more, him trying to find out more about the space so that he can invest and be in that market as well. So, like we were saying, that does not make him the creator of Bitcoin, okay? All that means is that he was an early investor. We already know from the first set of files that were released that he funded MIT $500,000, okay? MIT, if you don't know what MIT is, it's an Ivy League school in Boston. And he funded them $500,000 for blockchain development research, okay? So, when you fund them $500,000, you don't know exactly where it's all going to go to in depth. You're just funding it. So a lot of that went to Bitcoin research. So a lot of people try to put two and two together like he created Bitcoin. No, he just funded the developers. Okay, he was an early investor, an early funder. No one knew the things that he were up to, the sinister, evil things he were up to. They just knew he had money to fund. And he knew he had money to fund. Even the theme of these emails, he would use other people to go out there and find the stuff. He didn't ever want to put his face into the mix. Coinbase is now one of the biggest crypto exchanges. When Coinbase was just a startup, he was trying to get invested into that. He was getting forwarded emails from someone that was already an investor trying to get his slice of the pie. I don't think that ever went that way. I don't think he ever got to invest into Coinbase, but there are plenty of other companies that he did. He invested into plenty of startups that revolved around the digital blockchain and Bitcoin going decentralized finance, right? So when he says right here, when Austin says this to JE, the ecosystem we are building, they were buying blockchain digital startups. They were buying, investing into decentralized web. They were investing into what we have now, what we're trying to get into now, early stages. He was not the only one. There were plenty of other people around. It talks about this branch needs 5 million. They need 4 million. They need 1 million up front. People were coming to JE because he was the source of money. Okay, so that's how it got into his plate. And as this was all happening, since we have all access to his emails, he didn't know much about it. He would pay other people to go out there and find more and bring it back to him. Okay, so the only reason why we're going over this is to debunk the theory of him being Satoshi. We still do not know who Satoshi is. So there technically is a 1% chance that he could be. Okay, but I'm just coming through here to be that voice that, you know, uses actual information, doesn't look at only one email or certain half of the story, or look at these lines and form my own thesis. No, I go and do the research, and with the research that has been done, he was an early investor into the space, early person trying to flip his bread, knowing what it was going to turn into, and, you know, that's all it was, really. There's no emails indicating that he was the one in '08. There's nothing indicating him talking about Bitcoin before Bitcoin was mainstream. So there's nothing before 2011. There's nothing before 2008. If there was an email, all it needs to be is one email of him mentioning Bitcoin in '07. And I would say, okay, this could be serious. But it's only him in talking about investing into the future of finance in 2011. A rich guy investing into something before we know about it does not make them the creator. It makes them a rich guy that's investing, okay? So that's the thesis we've made from this as we were going through all of these different features and different emails about crypto. Trust me, there's a lot more emails out there that I don't want to get into. We already know that side of the story, okay? And I'm not here to judge, but we are making a thesis out of what we're investing into, because this is what we have to do as investors, okay? As an investor, as someone that wants to own assets and own things in the market, you have to do research, okay? You have to. It's imperative to do research. Why is it imperative to do research? Because then you go on social media and you have people fear-mongering you. Fear-monger means to insert fear into you, to scare you, okay? By their content, by their words, by their things that they've studied, or by the things that they don't even know about, but they're just putting it out there in the world. You know what I mean? If you're uneducated, then you're going to hear that, and it's going to take away that conviction you're supposed to have if you were investing. Get what I'm saying? So that's why it's imperative, very imperative, that we do the research, because without the research, we're just people buying random stuff. You know what I mean? I like to make this comparison a lot, but would you Do you like really buying something you know nothing about? We would go buy a TV if it was on sale because we know what the TV is going to produce. We know if I buy a TV, I'll be able to watch my show. I'll be able to download Netflix. I'll be able to watch football. We know that. So we're cool with buying a TV on Black Friday. But when the markets are down, if you don't know what you're investing to, so if we're talking about Bitcoin, if you don't know what Bitcoin truly is and what that can do for the future of finance and the leader it is in this space, then you're going to look at it and be like, wait, why am I buying this? That random cat on Instagram said that, Bitcoin was tanking forever. Let me get out because he could be right. But if you've done the research and you have the conviction, if you looked at the history, this happens. People get, if prices go up to all-time highs. Let's go to charts. We're pulling out charts. Prices go up to all-time highs. Hold on, we're on weekly. We're going to daily. Okay, prices go up to all-time highs. Boom, and when it's down and it goes to all-time highs, everyone's happy. Everyone's like, yes, 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 I knew it. But then when it comes back down, people's back scared, like, oh no, wait, I didn't do research. Why is this happening? And then it goes to all-time highs and everything's good. And then we start coming down. And then people are like, wait, why is it going down? Let me buy some more. Then it goes up. Oh, yes, this is the greatest day of my life. Then it comes down. Wait, why is it going down? Because people are uneducated. And once they just see price down or see a little red, if you don't know, if you don't have conviction over what you're buying, if you're uneducated on what you're investing into, then you'll be one of the people contributing to price coming down. And guess what? The smart money that knows what's going on, the government that's not trying to sign these shutdown laws, they're the ones that's gonna be rubbing their hands right there next to you. Anytime you're uncertain, okay? Anytime you're uncertain about an asset, look and see who else buys it. Look and see who else owns it. Okay, for instance, Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is coming down, but we look at Bitcoin, okay, we go pull up CoinMarketCap. If Bitcoin's coming down, right? And we look at Bitcoin, and we come and look and see who all owns Bitcoin. And we see MicroStrategy with 700,000 tokens still. And we scroll down and we see Trump, his media company, owning Bitcoin still. Bitcoin is God's gift to us. Hey, someone said it. I'm glad you said it. If you look and see Trump owning this still, 11,000. The president of the United States have 11,000 tokens. Okay, Tesla, a big company, has 11,000 tokens. Block, a big company, has 8,000 tokens. You look at this, GameStop, 4,000. These are companies you know. That's why I'm only naming them. But all these companies on this list are big companies. Okay? Mara Holdings. If you look and you still see that these people are owning these assets, you should not be fearful. That's step one. Especially if the president of the United States already went up on stage and said, America will not sell any more of its Bitcoin. We are building the future around crypto. That's all the news you truly need. That's all of it you really need to hear. Okay? And as far as you saying Bitcoin is God's gift to us, I would say the opportunity of Bitcoin does present, tremendous upside. There's going to be a wealth transfer with this new financial system. And this wasn't actually even in the agenda, but now we're going to talk about it just because you commented that, okay? The thing is this. The beginning of the world always needed a currency, because how would you know what something's worth? How would you know you had to pay something for something? And in the beginning, rice was a currency, sugar was a currency, stones were a currency. Then gold came around. Gold became a currency. Okay? And then we created a currency, the dollar. We just print that right on out. Okay? We have not had a major financial rails switch like we're about to see in the next coming years in a lot of our lifetimes. Okay, so if you were born before 1971, that was the last time we had a shift in the financial space. And if you don't remember what that was, I can let you know. That was when we decided to stop being backed by gold. Okay, that's when we switched away from the gold standard and we entered the United States dollar standard. Okay, and ever since then, the United States dollar has been the global reserve, meaning the global reserve is basically how countries trade. So if China trades something with India, they have to have a common currency. In the future, that would be gold. Now, well, in the past, I should say, in the past, that was gold. Everyone had gold. Gold was the common currency. I would trade gold with this country to get rice. I would trade gold with this country to get my tea shipped, to get parts shipped. Okay. In 1971, we went to American dollar standard. Now every country holds US dollar. Okay. Why? Because we print it. We print it out, we print it out, we print it out. So it's easy to have, it's easy to access. But that's how inflation becomes, because there's no bottom to the US dollar. See, gold, there's a bottom. That's what made it valuable. That's what made it valuable. There was scarcity. So there was only X amount out there in the world. But then we would discover new gold. Like, oh, hey, this country just came across a gold mine. More gold's out there now. Hey, another country came across a gold mine. There's more gold out there now. Okay? But you couldn't just print it out just because you felt like it or just because numbers look bad, right? So the last true financial shift was in 1971. So going back to Bitcoin is a gift to us. Yes, it is, because this is one of the first financial shifts of our lifetimes. And in that financial shift, there's going to be a wealth transfer. That wealth transfer will consist of the people that are educated in the space. Okay? I'm going to say that one more time. The wealth transfer will consist of the people knowledgeable in that space. The reason why I say of the people knowledgeable is because a lot of people will come across crypto. A lot of people have come across crypto, but they were not knowledgeable. They didn't understand really what this was, what was going to happen. Even Bitcoin, even the files we just read, JE, they didn't truly know what Bitcoin's purpose was yet. They thought Bitcoin was going to be money. Bitcoin's not going to be money, okay? Bitcoin's not going to replace the dollar, okay? Bitcoin is going to be digital gold, meaning when the markets go digital and everyone is using these blockchains and tokenized assets is a norm and stable coins is a norm, and you're getting your checks through stablecoin, and JP Morgan Chase drops stablecoin, and Bank of America has their own blockchain with a stablecoin, and Wells Fargo has a stablecoin. When that day comes, there will be a wealth transfer, and Bitcoin will become where you park your money to be safe. Why will Bitcoin become safe money? Because there's only 21 million tokens out there in the world. You can't make more. You can't create more. You can't print more. You only have to 21 million. Okay? When there's limited supply, there's an increase on demand. That's simple supply and demand. When there's limited supply, there's an increase on demand. So Bitcoin's limited supply is its gold. So when we say digital gold, we're not comparing it to actual gold bars. We're not saying Bitcoin is gold itself, because there's going to be tokenized gold. There is tokenized gold. There's going to be tokenized everything. Okay, so we're not saying Bitcoin is tokenized gold. We're saying Bitcoin is digital gold. When money is digital, when money moves digitally only, when you get paid in stablecoin and you want to buy an ETF, instead of buying an ETF, you're going to go park your money in Bitcoin. Why? Because Bitcoin is going to keep going up, because supply is less, which means demand is more. And I really hope that we understand that, because that is the shift right there. That is what people spent the early years creating Bitcoin. Like, this could be the answer. This could be the future. But then as it started coming around and developers started leaving the project and norm people started mining, they're like, this could be currency. We don't need to use the US dollar. We could just use this money amongst ourselves and pay people with Bitcoin, and no one can track us. That creates illicit activity, yes. That creates illicit activity, and that's probably what JE was into. That's why he was big on Bitcoin, because he might have been using it for illicit activity. Yes, you can do that. Yes, that is a con. Yes, but you could buy drugs with $1. You could buy drugs with a $20 bill. You could send a drug dealer money on Zelle. You can send a drug dealer money on Cash App. Any system there is, people that are trying to take advantage, they will find the answer. Okay? So, with all of that being said, the future is now. Okay? It's no longer that this is just a hope so or I think so. The rails are being built. The markets are being manipulated so the wealthy could buy at a better price. So we have to look at it the same way. We have to grow that conviction in the asset. And Bitcoin isn't the only thing that's going to go up. These two tokens right here, Bitcoin and Ethereum, are the blue chips right now. Okay, BNB is a big one too because this is Binance's coin. Binance is the biggest exchange for crypto. Okay, created by someone that was an early investor in Bitcoin and became a billionaire. But that's neither here nor there. Bitcoin and Ethereum are blue chip tokens, meaning they are the for sure leaders of the space. Why? Because Bitcoin is the creator, ETH is the source. So a lot of these other tokens come from Ethereum, and their coins are valuable. See, it's a difference between coins and tokens. Tokens is used for the network. So we'll look at, BNB. BNB is a token. So that's Binance's token making their app run and function. So they use their tokens for different things. You know what I'm saying? They can use their tokens for burn-offs. They can use their tokens for rewards. They can use their tokens for different things. XRP is a token. These are coins. Okay? Coins is something that you just buy and you hold. You could buy and hold tokens too, but tokens also are needed to make the ecosystem work. So with all that being said, there's going to be other tokens that play out well as well in the future. And that's where you do your research and you grow your conviction on, hey, what are these tokens' purposes? What will they solve in the future? What will they make an impact or a difference on? All right. And then as you do that, always keep God at the forefront of any decision you make. Always stay prayed up because the devil is working right now. He is out. He's always working. He ain't trying to do nothing but kill, steal, and destroy. So us as people, we have to stay prayed up. You don't grow this sort of conviction and you don't grow these sort of character tools if you don't got God somewhere with you. So whether you just giving him a simple thank you to start the day, or whether you deep in prayer, or whether you read in a chapter a day, stay grounded in the Lord. And you'll have the conviction you need, okay? And you won't miss out on this generational wealth transfer. Remember, this is the first time ever in our lifetimes, unless you were around before 71, and you probably didn't even know, and it wasn't much of a wealth transfer there. But this is the first time ever that we're seeing a financial shift of this magnitude, where the dollars goes digital. And this has always been a plan since the internet rolled out. When the internet was already about to come out, they were like, how could we make money move on this internet? That was always a thought process. The word blockchain's been around way before the internet came out. When the internet was just the idea, people were already thinking of blockchains in the 90s. Okay, so this is years, decades of work that is about to come into fruition this decade. And now it's like we ain't even got to do the heavy lifting. Imagine being one of the people that's seen this vision back in 2010, and now you still waiting. Now, if you had conviction and you held the long hold, you're already reaping the benefits, but you still haven't seen it play out into full fruition, right? We're at the back of the tail. We don't have to wait as long, and we're still getting shooken out by something like this. We're still letting this shake us out, shake us down, getting us out of our positions, right? So, staying prayed up is the answer. If you ask me, you just gotta stay prayed up, and you gotta do your research. You can't just stay prayed up and not do none at all. listen to the word, listen to the spirit, and be obedient, and do some research at the end of the day as well, because the research is what really helps you stay grounded as well, alongside the Lord. When you knowledgeable and you understand what's going on and you know how the markets work, then it's like, okay, I'm starting to see what's going on around here, rather than being unknowledgeable, trying to trade, trying to jump in, trying to buy some shares, and then now it's down, and you're like, wait, I don't know why it's down. Why would the markets go like this? This is blasphemy. And then you sell, and then now a month later, you feeling horrible that you sold because now it's going back up, but you don't know why it's going back up. That was me. That was me a few years back, okay? I was just jumping in, no floaties, right into the deep end, off the diving board, hitting 20 front flips into the pool with no floaties, never knew how to swim, jumping straight first into the market. Okay, and that's why I want to be in the position I'm in now to help educate in this space, especially crypto, because this sort of content's only going to be able to be around for about 5 more years. I'm only gonna be able to talk about getting in now before it's too late for probably about 2 to 3 more years. By that 5th year, it's gonna be normalized, and the content might look different. Okay, but right now, we're in a space where it's like, hey, it's not too late. Actually, this is perfect timing. And you see, we're at extreme fear at 18. So if you were ready to invest in crypto, this is your time. This is your time. Okay, let me get some more real fast. So With all that being said, we're about to actually be wrapping up here soon. But before we wrap up here, okay, I want to actually close this out. We're gonna be on here for about 5 more minutes to watch this weekly candle and just talk about what could potentially happen after this week candle close. So this is the daily candle. You see, we haven't formed lower lows just yet. Maybe a slight lower low. Let me see, 75.6. Yeah, so just a slight lower low. Okay, but let's see how this candle closes. Let's see if we see some 5 minute crazy insane work, or do we close under this 100 EMA on this structure. Okay, and then once this 5 minute candle closes, I'm gonna pray us out of the live, and then we could go back about our days. Okay, but the significance of this EMA, we're gonna do some chart work, some chart analysis. I live in the charts. I check the charts a lot throughout the day, and I'm always trying to learn more and pick up on trends and just understand more and get more knowledgeable. I know a lot in the markets, but there's no such thing as knowing too much. Okay. So as we're watching this week candle close and trigger down its last 4 minutes, this is from Sunday 4 o'clock to next Sunday 4 o'clock. Okay, this is how the week goes. This is how a crypto week is. It's 4 to 4 always. But now as we're looking at the price into this, we're right under this 100 EMA. Our previous week candle, we wicked right under the EMA, but we closed above it. So if you watched last week's video or you were a part of last week's live, we said this week we're going to be paying attention to see if we actually close above this 100 EMA or if we were to wick down. What is wick down? And you might be thinking, what do you mean when you say wick down? So right here, you see how on November 25th week, this long line right here just kind of came down, hit this line, and then came back up, but this bottom of the candle still closed above this blue line. That's what wick down means. Technically, since we have 4 minutes left of this candle, we're still waiting to see if we wick down, because we could technically still close above that EMA. Technically, I don't think it's going to happen because there's 4 minutes left, but we never know. That's why we're watching. So last week we were saying we need to see how this week candles closes. And now, hypothetically, if this candle closes under this 100 EMA on the weekly chart of Bitcoin, this next week, so this 2nd of February, this 1st of February to the next week of Sunday at 4 o'clock, we're going to be watching to see, one, does this week candle come and hit 74,000, forming a lower low at our ultimate buyer zone? Remember, we've had these zones marked out for months, so we always knew there was a risk of price hitting here. It has not broke structure just yet. Okay, it is down, it is bearish, but it has not broke structure just yet. So now we're gonna form a lower low this next week and smack this line to 74,000, or are we gonna have a handoff and now sellers step back, buyers step back in, and we get above the EMA? Okay, what I think is we're gonna end up retesting this 80K. Okay, if we close right here, my thesis for Bitcoin for this next week is to watch the retest of this 80K right here, where buyers stepped in previously. Okay, and you see we're pushing up a little bit. Buyers stepping in these last 3 minutes. We're getting to 77,000. But we're gonna see if buyers could push price up to 80,000, and we'll see. This makes way more sense now. Appreciate the knowledge. Goat, preach goat. We're gonna see if buyers step in right here, push price up. If it does push price up, we gotta watch how Bitcoin price performs at this 80,000 range. Okay, does 80,000 get smacked back down and form a lower low back to 74,000, and are we stuck in this range right here trading, or will buyers pick up even more momentum to go retest 86,000 at that 100 EMA? That's the thesis for the next week. And like I said, we don't guess, we don't predict, we don't know it all, and we don't hope. We come look at the charts, we perform thesis, and we factor in real world news. Okay, we don't guess, we don't predict, we factor in real world news. So we're looking at the charts, and we just performed a thesis. We came up with a thesis on what we are looking for the next week. Just like last week, our thesis for this week was to see, will price respect this EMA, or will it come under and close under? And as we see, it closed under. We didn't guess, we didn't predict. We gave two scenarios, and we're reacting to the scenario at hand. So now throughout the week, that's what we'll be watching for. and this 1 minute is coming to an end. So it's gonna look like it will close under that $100,000. I mean, close under that 100 EMA at $76,000, somewhere in that realm. As we got 50 seconds away from this close on the candle. So we're just gonna close us out in prayer as these last 50 seconds trigger down. And I pray that there was something that was said, that resonates with you, to one, bring you closer to the Lord, or two, bring you closer to investing as well. Okay. So I'm gonna just lead us out in prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. All right. So we're going to close the stream out with this weekly candle on Bitcoin. And it's at about 10 seconds left. Does not look like it's going to have any buyers stepping in to bring it to that 100 EMA. Amen. Thank you, God. So that's the thesis for Bitcoin next week. We also have a lot of new information that I hope that you picked up some light on regarding that government shutdown, regarding just the future in general, and just the fear mongering that's getting put out there in the world, because the enemy works in crazy ways. The enemy he don't care who it is, he'll use you to push an agenda. Okay, and this is the month candle, so we'll also keep an eye on this too. And we see that it's right, wicks are right here. We're just gonna see how this month candle closes as well. So for the whole month of February, we'll be watching to see if we close another lower low. Okay, will we make more lower lows? So a lower low right here, this low right here, the next low is lower. We'll see if this next low is lower than this one. We got 27 days of the month, so keep that in mind for the month of February. For the weekly chart, we're gonna see if we can make a newer lower low, or if buyers step back in. I pray there was something that was said that resonates with you to bring you closer to God. And I pray there was something that was said that enlightens you to invest and get in on this wealth transfer. Y'all pray my strength in the Lord.